matters, we have a proclamation for Constitution Week and then a resolution for Steve Darrell. Is that ready? We'll call email about that.
Yes, it is ready, and I'm assuming Phyllis will be able to get it. Yeah. And we're also gonna, we have the resolution, and then Steve Darrell is the person that did the video for the Veterans Memorial, and he cut it down to less than 10-minute clips, so we're gonna show that at the meeting. And at the end, the group sings America, and they're supposed to be here tonight.
Oh, great.
The girls from the,
They were good. They were really good.
Then we have the minutes. Does anybody have any questions or objections to the minutes?
Well, we've got two that have been redone, that are okay, and the rest we still need to get revised.
Okay, what two are you okay with?
Did you get the email from Leslie?
No, my phone crashed, so I don't have access to email right now.
The 7th and the 14th have been redone.
I do have access, but only the old fashioned way.
The 7th and the 14th.
Yeah, the 7th.
We have no invited guests tonight. Ms. Harris is here to give us a Board of Appeals report. Ms. Malcolm will be here to give us a stat report. But she wants a manager report.
I don't have a report. I've got two things I need your help, everybody's help on. One, if you remember, we talked about a work session to go over SPLOST at the retreat. And I'm suggesting, since it's 3 weeks to the next council meeting, if we could have a work session on October the 6th, it's 2 weeks from tonight. Is Monday good for you?
6 is not good for me.
Okay.
Any other night, but I have a commitment.
Okay. How about the 7th? What's Tuesday?
7th, we have a special call meeting.
Okay, that's at the rec.
Like
I
your
can't
next
do the
one,
8th, I'm taking Lamont's classes.
Okay.
You can go next Monday. I'll go next Monday then.
What's
The
that?
What about
13th.
next, what about next month? No, this coming Monday.
This
Next
coming Monday.
that would be the 29th.
Be September 29th.
You guys have been on 29th?
Yeah, I may
What
have,
about,
I have a tentative, I have to verify.
The 30th is the police night out.
Should be here October, no, Wednesdays.
very good, and
Okay. So Dave, can you check on that?
Yeah, I'll find out
Monday?
tomorrow. I'm waiting for somebody, I had a commitment, and
Okay.
to make sure.
We'll let Karen know.
Okay.
And Karen and Phyllis, you guys can work on that. So we're tentatively September 29th. The other thing is this. I'm not sure if it came up in the last work session or meeting, but maybe between the last meeting and this, there has been a request to use the green. It's from New Jerusalem Baptist, and it is because our next meeting is the 13th, and they wanted to use it on the 18th. I'm asking if I can just give you some background. I've talked with Ms. Johnson twice on the phone now. She's coming in the morning, tomorrow afternoon. But it is a church fundraiser. It's a high-level jazz concert. It sounds like they have very talented people coming in. They would need it from 4 to 10 on that October the 18th day, which would be a Saturday. They would like to use the stage. I went over everything with her as far as the costs involved. They are obviously a nonprofit, so it's just a $150 reduced fee. There's a maintenance fee, and then there's Craig's fee, or whoever can open and close the stage. So it does say in the policy that the mayor and council have to approve that usage. So I am
We just add to the agenda this evening and
what's that?
we just add it to our agenda this evening and go over.
Okay. Are there any questions? They're expecting 200 to 300 people. And it is a planned church fundraiser.
And that requires them to do police to put
Yes,
street
yes, they'll
crossing
be,
and all
they
that.
have insurance, they will be in touch with Roy for care, they have porta potties, so they're fully aware of the policy, and it's like I told Ms. Johnson, I think she'll come in tomorrow and we'll check all the boxes off.
While we're on this subject, let me just say that I know that Ms. Johnson tried to come in sooner, and staff didn't know how to handle her requests or to accept pay meds or anything like that. I think if it had occurred when she first came in, we possibly could have gotten it on the agenda before the agenda was even published, so I don't know what we need to do so that if future people come in, it's handled differently.
And I think that's when I was out for training last week, DOT, federal highway stuff. And so we can, we won't have that hurdle next time. We've already gone over all this. So if I could get your approval to place it on the agenda for approval.
Butch, I didn't hear where they want the stage.
Excuse me?
At their church or on the green?
On the
Okay,
green.
on the green.
They want to use the green.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
So can we amend that, and just put it under the consent agenda, or you want it as a new business item?
Good. Okay, thank you.
Very good.
We have old business, we have second reading on the Dimensions Development Partners. Is this Solar Tropical and Krispy Kreme?
It is. It's, the request by Dimension Development Partners to rezone from DMVG for two food service restaurants, Polio Tropical and Krispy Kreme. Polio Tropical is close to 4,000 square feet, Krispy Kreme is somewhere between 24 and 26. They're gonna develop it as one parcel with 70 total spaces. They request some variance in landscaping and some parking reproductions, as well as some signage for both buildings. The Polo Tropical signage is basically to add more architectural type panels and shades and canopies, whereas Krispy Kreme's variances revolve around their neon signage, two on the monument, two inside the building on the window, and then one on the back of the building facing basically Dogwood Road. Those are outlined in the staff report as well. If there's any questions.
Jason, when you do your report, would you go in a little more detail on the signage for the
Sure.
Krispy Kreme and that neon and how big they are?
Yeah, I can touch
Just
on
give
it
me a
now a
little
little
more,
bit, just so you.
a little more detail,
You
please.
know, the front, the windows on the front, which is the eastward side coming down where you see from 124, and the right, which is the north side, which you view from north, going south, is 184 square foot. They're 4x4s basically. The one on the wall is 6x5 basically on the back side, where you would only see it basically from the Texas Roadhouse area, maybe Dogwood. That one's 30 square feet, so that's pretty consistent. The monument sign will have one on each side, and they'll both be 15 square feet, or 4x4 basically again.
So we got lots of signs.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that. Some ways, if you guys wanted to reduce some of that down, you could take away some of the window signage, or you could reduce the monument signs down to the size of, you bring that a little bit smaller, or not.
Who
allow
else
them
shares
at
the
all.
monument sign?
Just theirs. It'll be a smaller, they're allowed to have two because they're basically gonna split the distance that they would get for one on that one road with Polio Tropical.
So there's gonna be two per sign?
There'll be, the Polio Tropical will have their own sign adjacent to Dogwood. 124 will have no signs. And then Krispy Kreme's will be located a little further south where their drive is, but they'll have their own too. I think it's a maximum of 64 square feet or something like that, the smallest one we can give them. And they'll have front and back 16 square foot, hot and ready signs. That's the proposal.
Hot and ready on the monument?
No, just in the windows.
No,
No,
there's
it's on
one
the
on both
monument.
Oh, there's one on the monument
So,
too.
Each side of the monument.
Yeah, it's like.
each side, north and
Two
south,
lots.
and then,
Yeah, weren't they asking for 3 in the restaurant?
there's 2 windows and one on the back portion, the western elevation basically, that would abut. It would probably only be viewable from the people that are coming in the drive there, on the back side of the building. And 2 windows, one on the north, on the east, and then on both sides of the monument, so.
Am I right? Did I understand correctly that there's gonna be a sign on Dogwood with a neon on both sides, and then a sign that's not on Dogwood, just on 124?
So what's their total signage is how much in excess of standard?
Well, they're not necessarily going over as far as their allowable signage, square footage as much as it is the signage height. You know, it's prohibited, exposed neon is prohibited, and has been for some time just because of the glare it puts off and, you know, the distractive nature of it. On the other hand, Krispy Kreme, that's what they've used for years and years, so just try to balance, you know, what you want to let them do. There's some different ways we can look at reducing it.
Yeah, we've never allowed neon on the street signs, have we?
We shouldn't have, if there's any. I mean, it's
I
been
don't know that
prohibited
we've
since
ever
I've
had
been
it.
here.
I have
I'm
a
sorry,
little
don't
bit
they have
of
like a-
precedent.
A fluorescent lit sign on the street, and then the neon inside the store, and their store on 78.
I'm not sure. I know the one by the Mall of Georgia has the
On
neon.
the street?
They have neon on the street.
Mall of Georgia has it too. Their monument sign's a lot smaller. It's maybe 5 feet tall, 5 feet wide. It's a little less exposure. This one's a little bit larger than that. I don't-
And that's what I don't want. I mean,
Anything other than that?
I mean, you kind of get it, because Krispy Kreme just always done it that way. I know.
So where do we meet?
Project, they can change. Las Vegas.
And maybe you could reduce the monument height if you wanted to and bring it down, so it kind of, right now it's sitting, this isn't, they're not gonna be allowed to do that sign, but right now they're showing it at close to 11 feet tall, where it starts, so you're gonna come down that hill, it's gonna be right there.
So 11 feet at the bottom of the crescent sign. So it's gonna go up to
The
what?
neon part will
The
start.
neon, rather, so it's gonna go up to 15 feet.
That's what they're showing here on this original drawing, but I think we've reduced them down to the point where they can't make a sign this big now. We're only allowed 64 square feet, I believe, is the one we should. That shall not exceed 10 feet in height and 80 square feet in total. So the biggest it can be is a 10 by 8 with the recommended condition. So it won't be 15 feet, so they'll have to fit it in there. I mean, you could reduce it further to just have enough room to put the sign on there, or you could try to find something else. Hopefully the applicant can speak to that a little bit more to what Krispy Kreme's, you know, bottom line is.
And they want, is the neon on all the time, or is that just the neon that's
Just
just hot? and
supposed to
ready?
be just when it's ready.
I think they changed that policy. I think they're always ready.
Or maybe they're like ready every 5 minutes.
Every time I've been in there, they've sold me donuts.
I've been warned too.
It's amazing.
Never said what we're off now.
Jason, just one thought. This is the only issue that I really have about this whole redevelopment here on this corner. I know that bank parcel's been empty for a long time, but I just got a little bit of hesitation with taking what was an office building that would be suitable for office or retail or another bank, and now converting it to 2 more fast food restaurants along 124.
Well, I mean, I guess we can only, fulfills what the market will bear, and
Yeah.
this has been sitting there for 2 years, and, you know, as far as the zoning and land use perspective, it fits and it's in compliance, and they said they marketed that spot for a long time for office professional, but there's,
It's not a market.
this is kind of what we're getting, so.
Are they demoing that building or they
They'll
gonna?
have to demo it, regrade it.
I thought it was,
Well,
then
we're
when you said
getting-
redo, I was like, oh, they got that.
We're getting two that were fast food or restaurants, the old Uncle Buck, Uncle Mike's, or what's the?
Okay.
Uncle Betty's, and then the fish place in front of it gonna be converted to office.
Yeah.
And then the pharmacy there, so, you know, sometimes we get some, we don't get some. So I don't think we're converting. I think we're converting what the market, I think Jason spoke to it right, I said, he said, what the market will allow us to do. You know, as long as it fits within our parameters, you know, we need to look at it.
And we've got a lot of, some other office space, new stuff, like behind the Mo's is still open, there's still a lot of leasing space for the most part.
Other questions? Under new business, we have application for an easement for AT&T placement of phone cabinet in the Ellis area.
We can actually remove that. We took care of that with the DDA the other day. I wanted to cover all my bases, and what that is, basically, there was a necessary cabinet placed by AT&T right at the head of Flower Street in Wisteria, and they did it mistakenly. They did not communicate very well internally, and when we saw it, we started communications with them and determined that they had to have it for service downtown. And so we started looking at alternative locations. We looked on Flower Street where we knew there was already going to be an EMC box. There wasn't enough room. So then we started looking at different sections of the Wisteria property, and from an engineering perspective and a service perspective, it needed to be towards Tim Stewart's funeral home, and we said, well, let's put it on the property line, as close as we can. There's a 10-foot sidewalk there, landing strip. It's going to be on the edge of the right-of-way. So we talked to the DDA about granting an easement, and basically they were fine with that once we put restrictions on the height of the cabinet that could go there. It will be landscaped. It'll be buffered from the Wisteria property, and so that's basically where we ended up. So the DDA granted that easement.
Consideration of an action on Board of Appeals request for nomination and approval of Matt Zaris, did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
As a board member? Discussion of that? Award a bid for the Snellville Senior Center cast stone repairs.
We have been dealing with this issue for quite some time. We obviously did our research on the causes for the stone to drop down. We looked at various options of repair, and with the help of Paul Hoover, who's here from Precision Planning, the original architect on the building up to a point of construction. He left before this stone was put on the building, and someone who has a lot of knowledge in the area, and he has been helping us get to this point. And I'd like for Paul to kind of explain the process, the best process we feel for repair that we've come upon. So Paul, kind of explain what Morley would do to make the repairs.
Okay. United Consulting was the third-party testing agency that analyzed the cast stone to find out what the problem was, and they recommended that the cast stone be repaired, but it had to be repaired with a certain type of product, and it's going to bond the units where it's weak right now, where it's severed and piece fell off. If you look at the top of the units, there are apparent cracks that this could continue if it wasn't repaired. So to prevent imminent danger in the future, they're going to chip away the top edge where those cracks are. They're gonna epoxy inject and pressure inject epoxy down into those joints. Then the epoxy will end up being stronger than the cast stone itself. So we're gonna shore up the units pretty much, make them sound, and then over the top, we're coming back with a liquid membrane, waterproof, over the top of the units, so no more water will be able to get into the units. The units are porous, which allowed the water to get in originally, and that's what caused this problem. So the solution from United Consulting was, let's protect that top edge of the cast stone, not allow any water to get in there. Let's fix the cracks. This repair will be able to be done while the senior center is operational. We're not going to impact them in any way. When they come around the entrance, they're going to close one half of the entrance off, come in the canopy. And when they work on the other side, they're going to close that side and open the other side. So the citizens should not be impacted in the senior center itself. The duration is about 90 days, weather permitting. So the sooner we start, the better we'll be. We don't really want to get into the winter months where we'll have a lot of cold, windy, rainy weather.
Are they taking the brick off from the capstone up to the roof line?
No, sir,
There's a bid shows it.
there's a certain level of suspicion that the attachment of the cast stone may not be installed properly. There's a few cast stone pieces that look like maybe they're pulling the brick. And so we've asked the contractor to do 3 sample locations around just to make sure that they are attached properly. There's no way to really tell without getting into it. So they're gonna do that. If we get a green light, they're attached properly, where we suspect the most, we're good to go, we can continue. Worst case scenario, we get in, we take some sampling off, and oh no, there is no bracing in this cast stone, it's just the brick holding it, then we put him on hold. So I don't want to make you scared about that. We're not expecting that to happen, but I don't want to do this repair without some assurance that the stone was installed properly.
And we went through an RFQ process because this was a specialized type of repair work. Not everybody can do this work. And I think we qualified 3 contractors initially. 1 dropped off because of a problem with I guess it was more than just bonding. It turned out they weren't as qualified as they
They just declined to submit.
Okay, well, and we ended up with 2, and then when we went back out with the bid, we only received a single bid. Why we are not concerned about that was because initially, before we bid, we negotiated with a firm in Lawrenceville, Engineered Restoration, and their negotiated price was within, what, $2,500, $2,300 of our bid price. So we know that it was in the same ballpark as that negotiated number, and that.
Sure, it was clear you negotiated with a company that's not the same company that bid.
That's correct, that's correct. We determined that, after talking to Mr. Powell, that we needed to put out an RFQ and go through the bid process rather than negotiate. And it turned out that there was more than one qualified contractor. And these folks, the Morley company, have good references. Everybody has confidence in them, and that's where we stand as far as the contractors.
Worst case scenario, if they haven't been attached properly, what kind of percentage increase in the repair are you looking at? 100%? 200%?
That's hard to estimate because
It's a major
in order to
situation.
repair it, all the brick would have to come off, the coping would come off, the roof would be impacted on the backside, so the roof warranty comes into question and keeping the warranty sound. So it's hard to estimate at this point. We are hoping that what they find is what we need. But we will put the brakes on really hard if we find anything that's suspect. Because we can't spend this kind of money and then not have some insurance that it's sound.
So we need lots of cross fingers.
Other questions?
I'm not sure if there will be an executive session this evening or not. But there may be one aspect of this whole situation that calls for an executive session.
C, settlement agreement for install. Can we discuss that?
If there's any questions, that would be an executive session to the extent that it felt like it was a current time for this communication. But it's ready for public approval tonight, assuming everybody's on board.
It's all what we've discussed before.
It's the agreement that was sent to
Yeah,
you.
nothing changed.
No, no.
It looked like some words changed, other than that.
Okay. Nomination of Sam Roper to the DDA. Any discussion on that? Any report?
Don't have a report now. You've got to do your discussion.
Peer redevelopment tour. Eric, you have an update, did you? Peer redevelopment tour?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, council members. We had the opportunity on September 12th to take advantage of, since you all decided to go on retreat and do some good work. Brian and I went on a tour of the redevelopment tour this year, and I had the opportunity to take a Quest intern from South Gwinnett with me. So I had the wonderful opportunity of having a pair of eyes there who's the person in the generation we're trying to attract here. And so I'm going to let her take some of my time of the report just to share her perspective of what she saw, because I think that's valuable. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. She actually had some time. I'll let her explain her kind of vetting of the discussion. We saw 3 areas. We saw the 4th Ward Old Park, and we saw what was a green space there, initially a detention pond. You'll see those pictures in front of you. And the top picture is the detention pond that's currently new. The other 3 I put in there are just other pictures of detention ponds I pulled up, just so you can kind of see a collection of different ways they're done. The second place we went was Decatur. Most of you are familiar, if not all of you are familiar with Decatur, the 30-year success, and they talked about how they got to where they were. They empowered their DDA and funded their DDA, and did a lot through there in connection with community leadership. And of course, it took them 30 years overnight to make that happen, and we'll continue to plod that process. The third one that we saw was Emery Point. Down near Emery, much denser, much higher level of development. I think the thing that we took away, I'm going to let Kother talk about, but let me stop there and introduce you to Kother Renew. What grade are you in? 11? Senior, okay. I was going to say senior and then it stuck me. A senior at South Gwinnett, and to you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I just wanted to say that the first thing that really struck me about the whole experience with the partnership with the development tour was that I did like a lot of things that I saw, but at the same time, I did feel that kind of discomfort of it coming to where I live. I grew up in Snellville is a fairly small town, and there have been a lot of great things about that. However, at the same time, a city can either grow or, quite frankly, die, and we want to still have Snellville thriving in the next 20 years. So I think what we're facing right now is a pretty common small town dilemma, which is how do we maintain the integrity of suburbia while still keeping our city on the map. So I went ahead and talked with different members of my school and just had them toss out ideas and different things like that. And so what we really came up with were sidewalks. That's really important. We want communities walkable, and traffic reduction, and also in terms of jobs. With people of my generation, which I nicknamed the millennials, we don't want to have to drive 40 minutes for a commute to work. So if you're thinking in the mindset of a young urban professional who just graduated college, you want a community that's easy for them to live in, because we want to bring innovative thinkers back to our city in order for our city to thrive, which we really need. So I think that if we're able to target some things that don't really affect the dynamic of our community on a large scale, then I think that's our path to success. We don't need to have 5-story buildings here left and right, but I think it is a great idea to have something like the 4th Ward implemented in our community where they have a detention pond made into a habitat, which attracted a lot of nice build like apartments here to the right, and it just kind of improved the community as a whole. And I think it's important to have that because if you don't bring innovators into the community, then the community is not going to thrive. And we need to have Snellville constantly growing. So in terms of that, I think that would be very important.
Thank you.
Amen. Good
Just a
job.
closing comment, you can see, I think that there's some value, we'll continue to chat. The options I show you there will have a direct impact on our community as we look forward to the CFI coming. There are several detention ponds that are around that CFI, believe it or not. And so we can either have them look like the fourth picture that's in there, or maybe not quite the first picture that's in there, maybe that's a little too much for what we want there. But one of those two in between, we could certainly do, with the sidewalks around it, with some green space, maybe a few more trees. I'm not sure we would choose the third drawing that's in there, which is just kind of the pond beside the road kind of thing, looks more like a ditch. So
I see that in my yard every time it rains hard.
So we do, this has a direct impact to us in that we will be considering some of these things as we look at what happens with the CFI, and then also as the DDA works through what's going to happen with the Wisteria Square property, and thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Did you get this picture from somewhere in Snellville?
I did not, I just pulled them off the internet.
You could have.
Yeah,
could have.
I can show you one.
Memo of understanding with the SEC, Ms. Kemper?
Yes, I emailed this out to everybody, so I hope you've had a chance to read through it. But with Eric's help and the SEC board, which is all volunteer business owners, we went ahead and drafted kind of the working relationship between the city government and the Office of Economic Development and the Snellville Entrepreneur Council, which is a separate nonprofit. The organizations, as it's stated in the memo and also the resolution, both organizations have a similar message and vision, which is to create an entrepreneur-friendly ecosystem here in Snellville to help attract the innovators that we need to have here in the business, in our business community. The market studies that have been done over the years and out of the partnership Gwinnett study that was done showed that that Snellville wasn't really suitable for a lot of different types of industries, and like, you know, anything that's warehousing, wholesaling, that kind of thing, that distributing type businesses that need the interstates, things like that. We're not suitable for that, plus we don't have the property for it. What we are suitable for are small business, entrepreneurial type businesses, professional businesses, things like that, that can create those high-tech or have those high-tech jobs, those innovation jobs here. And between the city and the SEC, we're all about trying to attract those entrepreneurs, get them located here in the city, and provide resources and services to help support that community. And so that's what we're working on. And this lays out some of the things that are going on now between the city and the SEC, and most of it's pretty much what's happening now. In fact, there's a couple of things on here that we already need to revise a little bit, but it's really minor. So we just wanted to lay it out to where, since the SEC is a nonprofit, we've realized there may be questions raised about the relationship and what's happening, and we wanted to make sure that it was really clear to anyone who looked at it that the city was not providing funding or services to the SEC that weren't also being exchanged back. And right now, there's been no direct funding from the city to the nonprofit. Any types of funding or any types of projects that would require any kind of money exchange between the two entities, all of that would be negotiated at that future time. And that's all here in this agreement as well. The agreement, this is really just an outline of how we're working together. It is not a binding agreement. It's not a contract. There's nothing contractual about this. I just wanted to put it out there for public knowledge and understanding. Any questions? So I'm planning on putting this on the agenda for the next meeting.
A water contract for senior center repairs. Can you go over that again, or? Action on the town green proposal. We had a presentation last week, and I probably put stuff and left the new stuff by Root Design, is that the name of the company? And they gave us some cost estimates. I guess my question is, what are the next steps then?
Well, if we're gonna have this meeting on splost, that's gonna be one of the budgeted projects. So that'll be a good time to discuss it and place it in line. And since the next meeting would be a couple of weeks after that, we'll put it on the agenda if we come to an agreement. So it'll be a good time to discuss it. Did you have, do you have any practical issues with the design? Everybody's fine?
I'm fine with the design, yeah, I'm fine with the design. I guess I have some questions about, and maybe if we're gonna discuss it this block meeting, maybe staff can go through. I went back and looked at this and looked at the original concepts, and there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of difference in cost. And so I guess what I'm asking for is, what are the exact differences, because what are the, and I know it's time, part of it is time as far as cost is concerned. But are we gonna bid this out? Is this something that we would approve for root design?
And we bid it out. We'd have to, I mean, that is basically just a cost estimate and a rough design. You'd have to put a bid package together, full specs. And even though they look similar, Mayor, there's a lot more construction here than there was on the Piper O'Brien. Piper O'Brien the grade was not changing at all. There's a big difference to what you're going to get here. For instance, in the green itself, I mean, we have drainage problems, we have a lot of problems with the existing green, and that changes in this plan. Basically, you're getting new turf, you're getting drainage. It's going to be it would be a completely different park.
So what I would ask for from staff is maybe not an in-depth report, but maybe a summary, because looking at drawings to the average person, it looks like, okay, why did you just spend this money doing these new drawings that look the same? So we can have a summary of maybe some of the improvements that weren't included originally.
Because there is it's a big difference.
And then we'll put this on that special call meeting and discuss as far as spots.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
You might want to look at, there's some rough areas on the green that need to be repaired. And I think that's part of the cost issue, is you're not going to repair them if you're going to redo it. But I think you have to look at some of the issues. There's areas where the grass is rubbing away and the netting is starting to come through. And those, if we weren't going to do it, would need to be repaired. So I think some of the costs is mitigated.
Sure.
Revision to the title load ordinance. Mr. Fallon, you have anything for us?
I have there is some language in the settlement that describes, I think, what staff would do, and I wasn't sure that I was supposed to come up with something on that
We
agenda.
maybe put this on, we maybe put it on our first work session in November, maybe staff, Jason, or Mr. Powell could come up with some suggestions on how we can revise that.
Are they concerned, other than what we ran into, is that the case that we were working on, or any other concerns?
I have in my notes, because of the exec session that we're gonna put it on to discuss amending it so we didn't have issues in the future, so that was why I put it on here.
And I think I know what you need there.
Just some definition.
Right. Just I want to say that.
Anybody else have any other concerns or comments on that? Okay, session, the mayor and city council of Snellville, Georgia, may council announce a certain matter to be discussed